My name is Dr. Tahir, and today we're going to start. Today, as you can see on the screen, we're having a lecture by Sister Suheima. But before we start anything, we always have a prayer. So, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in, Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim, sirata allazina an'amta alayhim, غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Ameen. As I started before, my name is Dr. Tahir Kadanani. I'm a psychiatrist and the moderator of today's lecture by Sister Suheima Mohamed Batavia. We would like to welcome all of you to the ISIP Kenya lecture today. Now, the agenda is, as you can see on the screen, we're going to start by just having some guidelines and an introduction to ISIP. And then there's going to be the lecture by Sister Suheima Mohamed Batavia. And after that, we'll have a closing dua, inshallah. So we'll start with the guidelines for today. As you know, we are on Zoom, so you can see, and we request you that we would like you not to take any recording. This meeting is already being recorded, so please do not take further recordings or screenshots of the same. We would also request you to keep mute when you're not speaking. At the end of it, if in case you would like to ask questions, usually we would recommend using the chat option for the questions, but if someone is to come and unmute, we would like you to introduce yourself by saying your name and the country you are from. Now, ISIP Kenya is a branch of ISIP, which stands for International Students of Islamic Psychology. This is an inclusive space designed to connect people with diverse backgrounds interested in Islamic psychology. The aim is to disseminate knowledge, share resources, and discuss best practices in a free and accessible manner. It is also a platform to enable further development of people's personal and professional interests, studies, and understanding of Islamic psychology within their communities and/or countries of origin. This is something very small about ISIP Kenya. How to connect with us. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can follow on Instagram. You can become a member through the website or join via the WhatsApp group. So you can join via the WhatsApp group. You can see that this is the QR code, and you can scan it. If you would like, the QR code can be sent to you on the chat as well, so it's easier. Now, this is something very basic about ISIP, and now I would like to introduce our speaker for today, Sister Suheima Mohamed Batavia, who is a board-certified and licensed clinical nutritionist with over 2 years of experience working both in private and public hospital settings. Her expertise lies in providing evidence-based nutritional guidance and developing personalized dietary plans to support optimal health outcomes. She has a keen interest in combining nutrition and in showing how nutrition affects our daily life, especially in terms of the physical and the mental. She has already presented and delivered presentations for prominent institutions in Kenya, such as the Pharmaceutical Society of Kenya and Aga Khan Hospital. I'd like to welcome her, inshallah, to take it on from here. Sister Suheima.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. I am presenting my screen. Just give me a moment. Can everyone see my screen? Is it visible? Is my screen visible? Waiting for response. Kindly, if someone could respond. Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Once again, my name is Suheima Mohamed Baradia. I am a certified and licensed clinical nutritionist and your presenter for today. Thank you, Dr. Tahir, for the wonderful introduction. Today, I'm going to introduce all of you to nutrition and mental health, and we're going to talk about the critical role nutrition plays in mental health. Before we get started, I would like to express my gratitude to every single one of you for taking the time out for this presentation. I would like to start this presentation by asking all of you a very simple question. As an individual, do you think nutrition is important for your mental health? And if your answer is yes, then what role do you think nutrition plays? And more importantly, what can you do about it on a daily basis to improve your mental health? I hope to answer this question by the end of this presentation. So we're going to cover 4 main points in this presentation. We'll start with the introduction to nutrition and mental health and understanding the basics of both nutrition and mental health. We're going to go on and talk about the role of nutrition in brain function. Here we'll get into the specifics of nutrition and talk about some of the key nutrients for brain function, among other things. I'm going to talk about practical tips for better mental health that you can apply on a daily basis. And we're going to end this presentation by understanding the Islamic perspective of mental health and going over some of the recommendations. Before wasting any more time, let's get started. So we all know and we've all heard about the importance of nutrition for health and preventing disease. Today, let's focus on a more specific aspect of health, which is mental health. The brain, like any other organ, requires specific nutrients to function optimally. Think about it for a second. Your brain is always on. It takes care of your thoughts and movements and almost everything else on a daily basis. This means that your brain needs a constant supply of fuel. Healthy food with the right amount of nutrients and nourishment will enable your brain to perform optimally, while a poor diet will starve your brain of nourishment. Put quite simply, what you eat directly affects the structure and function of your brain and ultimately your mood. We can therefore expect that a deficiency or an imbalance in these specific nutrients can significantly impact mental health, and it could lead to mental illnesses such as depression, anxiety, and cognitive decline. Sadly, mental health crisis is on the rise right now, with depression being the most common mental health issue affecting 280 million people globally. We need to react to this by improving our lifestyle and learning how we can do that using food. I hope the first slide clearly explains the basic connection between nutrition and mental health. Let's move on to the second point of this presentation. Here we will talk about the role of nutrition in brain function and get into the specifics. Before we dive deep into the specifics, I want to talk about the 5 functions of nutrition for mental health. The first function is brain function and development. So our brain needs essential fatty acids, protein, and complex carbohydrates for brain development. And in fact, almost 70% of your brain is made up of essential fatty acids. The second function of nutrition is mood regulation. So nutrients like B vitamins influence the production and regulation of neurotransmitters such as serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine, which play key roles in mood regulation. The third function is cognitive function. Nutrients affect cognitive function such as memory, attention, and problem solving. In fact, iron deficiency is often linked to cognitive impairment. Battling inflammation and oxidative stress. Poor nutrition can lead to increased inflammation and oxidative stress, both of which have been linked to mental health issues like depression and anxiety. And the fifth function is your gut-brain axis. The gut microbiome, which is highly influenced by our diet, has a significant impact on mental health. A healthy gut can promote a healthy mind through the production of neurotransmitters and by modulating inflammation. So nutrients and proper nutrition is responsible for the above 5 points that I mentioned, which is brain function and development, mood regulation, cognitive function, battling inflammation and oxidative stress, and your gut-brain axis. Let's go into the details and the specifics of nutrition by starting off with the key nutrients that are needed for brain health. The first nutrient is omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-3 fatty acids are essential for brain cell membrane structure, and they're also anti-inflammatory. Common sources of omega-3 include seafood, nuts and seeds, so like walnuts and flax seeds. The second is B-complex vitamins, mostly B6, B9, and B12. These vitamins are essential again for neurotransmitter synthesis. Sources include whole grains, animal protein, dairy, and leafy greens. The third is amino acids. Amino acids again play a very important role in the production of neurotransmitters. And a dysregulation or an imbalance in neurotransmitter levels can lead to the development of various psychiatric and mental conditions. So a diet primarily consisting of whole foods, we should cater for your amino acid requirements. Antioxidants, fruits, veggies. So you have your vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E, and selenium, and other antioxidants. They help prevent against oxidative stress. Vitamin D is another important nutrient. It regulates the expression of genes that are critical for brain function, and it also helps in reducing inflammation. Sources include sun exposure. We have egg yolks, seafood, and fortified dairy. Magnesium, another very important mineral that has gained a lot of recent popularity when it comes to brain function, and it deserves it because it's again involved in neurotransmitter function and regulation of neuronal activity. Sources include leafy greens, nuts and seeds, and whole grains. Pumpkin seeds is a very good source of magnesium. Zinc is, this mineral again is found in very high concentrations in the brain, and it is involved in brain signaling, and low levels of zinc are associated with depression. Sources include meat, shellfish, legumes, and pumpkin seeds. Iron, a very essential nutrient again, essential for oxygen transport and energy production in the brain. Iron deficiency can lead to symptoms of depression and cognitive impairment. Sources include red meat, poultry, fish, legumes, and fortified cereals. So these are some of the specific nutrients that we talk about when it comes to brain health. Let's quickly go over them again. We have omega-3 fatty acids. We have your B-complex vitamins. We have amino acids. We have antioxidants, vitamin D, magnesium, zinc, and iron. It's also important to understand the impact of nutritional deficiencies and mental health. So since we said that certain nutrients are important for neurotransmitter synthesis, we also mentioned about omega-3 and how they are responsible for structure and the functioning of the brain. We talked about iron, and we talked about cognitive function, and we talked about antioxidants and anti-inflammatory fruits and veggies to reduce your oxidative stress and inflammation. So it is obvious that a deficiency will lead to impaired neurotransmitter synthesis. It will lead to structural and functional brain abnormalities. It will lead to poor cognitive function and lack of emotional regulation, and it will increase oxidative stress and inflammation, contributing to several neurodegenerative diseases. The problem here lies in our modern diets, because majority of our modern diets are composed of fast and highly processed foods. They lack several essential nutrients that are necessary for brain health. And unfortunately, being unhealthy has become the new norm in today's society. That's why symptoms like fatigue, irritability, poor concentration, mood swings, anxiety, and cognitive difficulties are so common in almost every other individual. I want us to also go through some of the beneficial dietary patterns and talk about what we need to avoid in terms of harmful dietary patterns. So when it comes to beneficial dietary patterns, I want us to remember 6 key points. I want us to focus on whole foods. So we need natural foods. and we need to avoid processed foods. So the first thing is whole foods. The second thing is whole grains. We need a variety of fruits and veg. We need healthy fats. So we need avocados, we need nuts and seeds. We need olive oil, healthy oils as well, lean protein, and occasional dairy. So these are the things that we need to focus on. And what we need to avoid is highly processed foods, high sugar foods, unhealthy fats, and junk food. Occasional indulgence is okay, but the problem here comes when we rely on these foods on a daily basis, multiple times a day even. So we'll discuss more about the dietary patterns in the upcoming slides. Let's move on. Talking about mental health and nutrition would be incomplete without mentioning your gut-brain axis. So what is your gut-brain axis and how does it affect your mental health? So your gut-brain axis is a bidirectional communication network that links your GI tract with the brain. And why is your gut-brain axis so important for your mental health? So the first thing is production of neurotransmitters. Healthy gut bacteria produce neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, and GABA, which are essential for mood regulation. In fact, one of the unknown fact is approximately 90% of your body serotonin is produced by your gut bacteria. So approximately 90% of your serotonin is produced in your gut. The second thing is gut barrier and immune response. A healthy gut barrier prevents harmful substances from entering, from entering the bloodstream and reducing systemic inflammation. And the third point is about short chain fatty acids. So your healthy gut bacteria again ferment dietary fibers to produce short chain fatty acids like butyrate, propionate, and acetate. All these have an anti-inflammatory effect and they help maintain the gut barrier and supporting brain health. So your gut microbiome is responsible for neurotransmitter synthesis. Your gut microbiome, a healthy gut microbiome, will improve your gut barrier and immune response. And your gut microbiome is also responsible for producing short chain fatty acids like butyrate, which have an anti-inflammatory effect. Let's talk about your brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It belongs to the neurotrophin family of potent ability of the brain, which is needed. So it is primarily produced in the brain, and it is influenced by the production of BDNF is influenced by various factors, including your diet, physical activity, and mental stimulation. So what we need here for high levels of BDNF in your brain is regular physical activity, appropriate mental stimulation, and a healthy diet rich in omega-3, antioxidant, and polyphenols. When you talk about polyphenols, you're talking about all the bright colored fruits and veggies. All these things support BDNF production, and low levels of BDNF are often found in individuals suffering from depression and anxiety disorders. So before moving on to the third point, which is practical tips, I want us to quickly recap what we have discussed. So we started off with discussing the importance or the 5 functions of nutrition for mental health. And then we talked about the key nutrients. And then we discussed the impact of nutritional deficiencies on your mental health. We discussed your gut-brain axis, and we discussed beneficial dietary patterns. And lastly, we discussed brain-derived neurotrophic factors, how the production is influenced, and why we need it why we need high levels of BDNF.
Sister Suheima.
Yes, Tahir.
So I just as a recap, what we have gone through so far. You've mentioned serotonin.
Yes.
And you mentioned serotonin, you've mentioned BDNF, you've mentioned omega-3. Now, just to add on to this, when it comes to mental health, why serotonin is important. As you all know, research has shown that for people with anxiety or with depression, the serotonin levels tend to be low. That is why it is important, and serotonin is produced in the gut. So that is why we need to have foods that will help increase our serotonin levels. When that is how important serotonin is in our diet. And when she has mentioned about BDNF, BDNF is present, it has been shown to be present, when studies have been done, the studies have shown that BDNF is present in people whose frontal brain, whose frontal lobe is more active. Now, the frontal lobe is where we have um, a lot of our actions, such as uh, thinking. Thinking process occurs from the frontal brain. When you have complex situations, how you understand complex situations, it occurs from the frontal brain. So BDNF is key in that element. Just to add on what Sister Suheima has presented to us about these elements.
Thank you, Dr. Tahir. Just to add on that, after Dr. Tahir's explanation, I hope we can all understand why taking care of your food in terms of giving your brain that nourishment is so important when it comes to healthy levels of BDNF, when it comes to healthy levels of serotonin, and all the other things that we know. So what are some of the practical tips that you can apply on a daily basis to improve your mental health after learning all the scientific reasons? Let's look at some of the practical tips that we can apply on a daily basis. So we'll start with focusing on improving your gut health. Again, your gut health is extremely important for your overall health and your mental health as well. And how can you improve your gut health? So the first thing that you need to do is stop overusing and relying excessively on antibiotics. This is a common problem in our society today, a small issue, and the first thing we tend to focus on is antibiotics without even analyzing if what we are suffering from is a bacterial infection. So we need to stop overusing and relying excessively on antibiotics, because again, antibiotics not only kill the bad bacteria, but they also end up killing the good bacteria in our gut. How can we increase the good bacteria? We can increase it by increasing intake of prebiotics. What are prebiotics? Prebiotics are foods that increase the growth of your healthy gut microbiome. So they include foods like whole grains. So you have your oats, your barley, your brown rice. You have fruits. Apples are great at increasing the quantity of your healthy gut microbiome. You have your veggies, you have your lentils, your chickpeas, all the plant-based protein, and honey, nuts, and seeds. So all these foods, they increase the growth of the healthy microbiome. And then we also need to increase intake of probiotics. Probiotics are foods that already contain the good bacteria. So we know natural yogurt is one of the most common examples. It is packed with lactobacilli, which is a very important gut microbiome. Promoting exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months and complementary breastfeeding for up to 2 years is also a recommendation when it comes to improving your gut microbiome because of the presence of bifidobacteria, which is present in breast milk. So improving your gut health is the first real life practical tip that you should work on. The second thing is a focus on adding specific brain boosting foods in your diet. We mentioned these in the previous slide. We said whole grains, right? Oats, brown rice. We talked about natural foods, not processed foods. So anything natural, anything that grows from the ground is good. We talked about seafood. So we talked about protein. And when we talk about protein, there are two things that we need to focus more on. The first is seafood, and the second is plant-based protein. So here, what we need to avoid is red meat on a daily basis. Red meat occasionally, once, twice a week is okay. The other thing is healthy fats. I mentioned avocado, I mentioned nuts and seeds, flax seeds, we have walnuts and almonds. The other thing we need to increase is the fruits and veggies, because again, you have your antioxidants and your anti-inflammatories from your fruits and vegetables, and you also increase your prebiotics. So a quick recap, you have your whole foods, you have your whole grains, you have your lean protein from seafood and plant-based protein like beans, lentils, and chickpeas. You have your healthy fats and your fruits and veggies. What else can you do? Practice mindful eating habits. So we want to develop a positive relationship with food. We need to stop labeling food as unhealthy or bad and start by creating a positive relationship with food. We have to pay more attention to what we are feeding our body, especially if we want our body to serve us right. We cannot expect to deprive our brain and our body of nourishment, and then we expect that there's no issues. That won't work. So if you want your body to serve you right, you need to start feeding it right, because it's the one thing that is in your hand. The other thing that I keep mentioning again and again is limiting processed and sugary foods. I want to break this down properly and explain to you what exactly processed and sugary foods do to you. The first thing is that they are completely zero nutrient value. So they have nothing, they're giving you nothing in terms of nourishment in your body. They're just giving you calories, nothing, no good things that are coming out from processed and sugary foods. The second thing that they do is they cause rapid blood sugar fluctuations. We all know how bad this is for insulin. And the third thing they do is they raise your cortisol levels, which can trigger anxiety. They are also pro-inflammatory. We discussed how inflammation is not wanted for your brain. They have pro-inflammatory ingredients, and they also cause microbiome disruptions. So what do? They have zero nutrients. They cause rapid blood sugar fluctuations. They increase your cortisol levels. They have pro-inflammatory ingredients. And chronic inflammation again is linked to depression, anxiety, and cognitive decline, and they cause microbiome disruption. We discussed why a healthy gut microbiome is so important for a healthy brain. I want us to go to the final discussion of this presentation, which is about understanding an Islamic perspective on mental health. I want to use the platform I have today to break the common misconception that mental health is a taboo subject in the Muslim. Multiple instances in the Quran where stories are used to provide relatability and offer coping mechanism strategies to multiple types of mental disturbances. It teaches us that even the greatest of people have experienced periods of extreme distress. We have stories from Prophet Yaqub, and we have stories from Prophet Muhammad himself, where where he went through periods of extreme distress and solutions are provided for him. So let's dig deeper into this topic and understand why exactly mental health is crucial. So the first thing, mental health is very important for a spiritual well-being, right? Mental health influences how we think, how we act, how we feel. So it is needed, a good mental health is needed for you to become a better and practicing Muslim, right? Because you need to know again, like I said, mental health is important because it influences how we think, how we act, and how we feel. So mental health and your deen is connected and interrelated. Islam has always validated mental health concerns, addressing the causes and symptoms of mental distress and providing solutions. Some of the solutions provided include adopting a better lifestyle, focusing on nutrition, improving your physical activity, changing your sleeping patterns, and even seeking professional help when needed. Understanding the connection between mental health and Islam will help in promoting the acceptance of mental health conditions and dealing with them the right way. Let's dig deeper into this topic and discuss some of the recommendations when it comes to Sunnah foods. So the first one we all know is honey. Honey is always used. We know the medicinal properties of honey, and recent studies have shown that honey might offer antidepressant, anticonvulsant, and anti-anxiety benefits. It has also shown to help memory disorders. Olives, they contain polyphenols, a natural chemical that reduces oxidative stress in the brain, as well as aiding memory. We have dates, one of the most like superfoods that we have. They are packed with nutrition, they are packed with antioxidants, they are anti-inflammatory, and we need antioxidants and anti-inflammatory to reduce diseases, development of diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, etc. Whole grain barley, Prophet ﷺ recommended talbina, which was made with barley, honey, and milk, and it was recommended to consume it as it relieves sorrow and grief. Today, we know the scientific evidence of whole grains because they are known to enhance serotonin production. And last but not the least, we have black seeds, known for their immense immune and anti-inflammatory properties. So a tip that I would give you is consume black seeds with honey every morning. With that, we have come to the end of this presentation. I hope I have clearly highlighted the critical role nutrition plays for our mental health and how we can improve it using mainly our diet and lifestyle. I believe all health professionals have a role in nurturing the culture that appreciates the power of food. Maintaining our mental health with nutrition is better than reacting to mental illness with drugs. Nutrition really matters, and if we are ready to get serious about mental health, then we need to start reforming our food systems and our food environment. I want to end this talk with just one simple, tangible advice that you can take home, which is understanding the concept of just one more and learning how to apply this in our daily lives. So what is this concept of just one more, and how can you apply it? Basically, try to include just one more healthy food in your diet every day. So today it could be a teaspoon of honey and black seeds every morning. Tomorrow it could be an apple. So just one more healthy food that you include in your daily lifestyle to improve your overall health, including your mental health. Thank you so much for taking the time out for listening to me, and I will be accepting questions right now.
Thank you, Sister Suheima. A very good presentation. I would like us to discuss something, if you don't mind.
Yes.
In terms of nutrition, what do you think would be the most common mental health issues that would be affected and that would affect nutrition directly?
Sorry, could you repeat your question?
So what do you think would be, like, how do you think nutrition would affect mental health conditions? So what mental health conditions, first of all, would you think that nutrition would affect directly?
Okay,
In terms
so
of
as we mentioned, nutrients are responsible for so many things, including production of neurotransmitters. And neurotransmitters imbalance is linked to anxiety, is linked to depression. So if you have an imbalance of neurotransmitters, which is caused by a poor diet, you're at more risk of developing anxiety, conditions like anxiety and depression, and even cognitive decline.
brilliant, absolutely. And for I don't know how many medics are on the group, or how many of us are more medical oriented, but for laymen, if it's going to be for a layman, for someone on the streets, and you're going to say nutrition and mental health, what would be your way of approaching it? What would be your way of telling them why nutrition in simpler terms would be important for their mental health? How do you think it will affect their mental health?
Okay, so the first thing is that nutrition and food is the only thing that you are absolutely in control of. So you decide what you're putting in your body, and you know how much nourishment each food has, because it's common sense. An apple, you give someone an apple, you give someone a Snickers bar, everybody knows that an apple is more beneficial to you. So it's the one thing
Yeah, but
that
the Snickers bar gives you more endorphins, isn't it?
it does, yeah, but we need to understand that we're looking at long term, not short term bursts of happiness.
Right,
We're
right,
looking at
right.
the long term effect of foods. So it's
Absolutely.
yeah, so it's the one thing that you're completely in control of, and it's just understanding what you're putting in your body, because at the end of the day, anything, like even a car, it needs the right amount of fuel for it to run properly, right? We can't put diesel in a petrol car and expect magic to happen. The same way, our body needs fuel to run properly, especially when it comes to our brain, because it's always on. So right fuel comes from the right food, which will create the right output.
Thank you. Brilliant. Um, there's a small statistic I'd like to share, and this is in a broader perspective, because as a psychiatrist, we see a lot of people who are having weight issues, and with the weight issues come mental health issues like depression. When they are fighting obesity and they're struggling with obesity, and they cannot see themselves in the mirror, they then, they feel body shaming and all of that, and it's quite rampant. Based on statistics from the WHO, we have the adult obesity has more than doubled since 1990, and adolescent obesity has quadrupled. In 2022, 2.5 billion adults were overweight. Of these, 819 million were living with obesity. In 2022, 43% of adults aged 18 years and over were overweight, and 16% were living with obesity. This is a huge number, and all of these directly impact on their mental health. And
100%.
the one way we can control, as Sister Suheima directly put it, is we have that in control, which is what we put in our body and how we take care of our body. Any questions? Do we have any questions in for Sister Suheima or for me? If there are no questions,
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I would like to ask a question. Yes, Sister Suhaima. Firstly, I must say it's a very good presentation by your side. Thank you so much. Enlightening information indeed. The question that I have is, what are some of the foods that you can mention that boost mood, basically? If you can
Sorry,
touch on that, please.
that boosts your mood, right? You say?
Right. Yes.
Okay. So we'll start with giving a brief description. So mood boosting foods are foods that increase your neurotransmitter production. So neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine are directly related to your mood. So what we need to do is focus on foods that will increase your serotonin and dopamine production in the long run, not the short bursts of happiness that we get. So what are some of these foods? So number one, we mentioned we have our prebiotics, because again, we mentioned that 90% of your serotonin is produced in your gut. So you have your prebiotics, so that includes your whole grains, fruits and veggies, all fruits and veggies. I have a bias towards an apple. So if you can include an apple in your daily routine, you're good to go. Nuts and seeds, so including a handful of almonds in the morning, having flax seeds water once 3 times a week, honey, a teaspoon of honey. all some of the things that you can include in your daily diet that will improve your mood. I hope to have answered your question.
Yes, thank you so much, Sister Suheima.
Any more questions? Does anyone else have any questions
more
for
questions?
Sister Suheima? There are no more questions. We would like to bring this I am
Dr.
told,
Tyre, I can see one more question
yeah,
in the chat box. It's does mental health affect your food nutrition intake? Can I direct this question to you, Dr. Tyre, because it's mental health based?
yeah, sure. Yes, it does. Mental health does impact. Mental health does impact your food intake. Simple example, common example. People tend to stress eat. When you have stress and for example, some people when they have exams, I'll take that as myself. When I have exams and I want to study and I'm feeling stressed, I usually go to food as a reliever. So our mental health status does automatically affect how we consume food as well. Number one. Number two, mental health in terms of, so when you're mentally active, when you're extremely active mentally, you're using a lot more energy than when you're physically active. So that also puts in the element of affecting your food intake. Now, similarly, when you're depressed, when people are undergoing depression, the one of the symptoms is not doing what you like to do. So if someone enjoys their food, they stop enjoying that food. They don't want to eat, they don't want to get out. They would do something just barely for survival in terms of not wanting. So yes, mental health does affect how you're going to how your food intake. Does that answer the question?
I believe it should. Thank you so much, Dr. Tyre. Thank you for answering my question. There's another thing I want to mention. It's the correlation between diabetes and mental health. Research has been done on it from, I think, the 17th century or so. If I was reading about it yesterday. It just shows the correlation between type 2 diabetes and mental health, and how if you're a type 2 diabetic patient, it would be harder for you. You would be at an increased risk of developing mental health conditions. And if you are a mental health condition, if you're a mental health patient, let's say if you have anxiety or if you have depression, then you're at an increased risk of developing type 2 diabetes, because you're less likely to take care of what you eat, and you'd be relying more on junk food and processed food, which would increase your risk of developing insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. We have another question in the chat box. It's about how does gut issues contribute to a dysregulated nervous system, the correlation. Like I mentioned, your gut almost acts like your second brain, because it's responsible for there's a because of the gut brain axis, your gut is directly connected to your brain. So poor gut health, number one, would reduce neurotransmitter synthesis. It would increase pro-inflammatory markers in your body, which would then high inflammation has again been linked to anxiety, depression, and cognitive disorders. I hope I answered this question as well.
Any more questions? If there are no more questions, would like to thank you all for attending. As you can see the screen, we would like you to fill out the short feedback form. Would also like, if we have made any mistakes in terms of this presentation, or if you've hurt anyone by saying anything, please do forgive us and make dua for us. To finally come to a close, we always end with a dua. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.